Hey folks, Robert back here with oddrandomthoughts.com, and today I'm going to show you a little something on Adobe Illustrator. I actually work in the screen printing industry, and I am a output technician, and what I do is separate artwork into layers so they can be output to screen. But in order to do that, we need to have a template that we can lay the art out on and separate our layers and work with the art. So today I'm going to show you how to create a template that can be used to separate artwork in Adobe Illustrator for screen output. So first thing we want to do is come up here to File and go to New. Okay, now we'll just call this template, and then we're going to start off with a width of 16 inches and a height of 21 inches. Now it depends on how you are actually imaging your screens. Now some of you, if you're doing this at home and whatnot, you could be using a variety of techniques. At one time we were actually using film and a textiler imager, and the rolls of film were 14 inches wide, so we basically had a 13-inch area that we could work with, and our print size for an adult shirt, a good size, is about 12 inches wide. So if we make this 16 inches wide, then that'll give us some room for margin on the sides of the template, and I'll show you a little bit more as we go, but anyway, be sure you're using inches here so you can have the right inches, and just leave the bleed. Be sure you're in color mode CMYK. All screen print and most print jobs are all in CMYK format. 300 pixels per inch is fine. Just click OK, and so now you have a blank artboard that's 16 wide by 21 inches tall. So first thing we want to do is go up here to View, and we'll go down to our rulers and Show Rulers. You can do that by issuing Control R as a shortcut key, and I'm a big fan of shortcut keys, especially since I do this for a living. I need to be able to work quickly, and I do hundreds of jobs a day. We're a very big company, so we go through a lot of art every single day, so I've got to be quick at it. But anyway, go ahead and show your ruler, and let's go over here and right click in the ruler and go ahead and change it to global rulers. And then if you hold down shift and hit O, that will allow you to manipulate your artboard. So what we're going to do excuse me, is go ahead and move our artboard up to the negative 2 inch marker. If you need to, you can arrow that over a tad, and then we're going to bring it down to about, we'll put it at the 1 inch marker. And folks, this doesn't have to be exact. The exact measurements are going to come in when you lay out your template, but just get it as close as you can, and then hit the V key on the keyboard, and that will release the template so you can again work with it. Now let's go over here and look at our layers. So right now we have one layer. Let's go ahead and double click on that, and we're going to label that as template. And it doesn't matter what color your layer is designated. I like to use red for any template layers, so I'm going to select the red color. Now what I want to do is I'm going to make a little box up here, and that box is going to be not only our baseline for the actual top of art, but it's also going to be a placeholder to where we can put labels. So as you know, when you output film or output to a rip that's going to rip into a digital TIFF format, or something that you may be outputting screens on a different type of system other than film, then either way you want to have labels for each of your color layers, so when the screen comes out, the printer can look at that screen and look at the top and say, okay, well, this is white, or this is royal, or whatever color it is. So let's just go to our rectangle tool and just drag out a little box. Now for the fill, we're going to pick none, and then hit the X key to switch to your stroke, and use registration. It's this little bullseye looking swatch here. Use registration for the stroke. Now you can make that any size stroke. 1 point is usually perfect for something like this. And we're going to go down and pick our transform tool. If you don't have it in your tools panel, you can go to Window and go down and select transform, and it'll pop up, and you can drag it and place it wherever you want, or just leave it up. This is one of the most useful tools that I can think of, especially as far as sizing art. But what we want to do is we're going to make this 12 inches wide. So go to the width here, enter in 12, and tab down to the height, and we're going to make the height 1/2 inch, so 0.5. First we'll need to unconstrain the proportions, so make sure the little chain here is not selected, and go ahead and make your 12 by 1/2 inch box. And then right now this stroke is a little dark for what I like, so I'm going to go over here and bring this down, back down to 1 point. When you resize, everything goes with it. So then just select your box, and as you can see, we're at 2 inches to 14, so that's a 12 inch width here, or excuse me, a 16 inch width, because we're at -2 to 14. So 6 is the center point of our artboard, so we'll put the x-axis at 6 inches, and then we'll bring the y up. We actually want the bottom of our box at the 0, because that's where the top of our art will be, so we can make accurate measurements. So in our reference point here, select the bottom middle, and then for y just hit 0, and that will pop that box right at 0, and it'll be centered, and that's where you'll put your labels and all that stuff, registration marks. So go back to your layers and expand the template layer, and go ahead and lock that one. Okay, now let's make some margin borders here on the side. We'll go up here to our line segment tool and hold shift and just drag down a little line there, and we'll come back to our transform tool, and we're going to make that, since our entire artboard here is 20 inches, we actually want it to come to the top of this, so we'll make it 20.5 inches. Okay, so we want to be sure that our reference point is at the top middle this time, so we'll select our line, and we'll put the x-axis at 12, and the y-axis at -0.5, so that will bring our line to the bottom of our template, to the top of our label box here. So let's go ahead and color that, and we'll make it a dashed line at 12 points. I like to lower the miter limit. Usually don't have any problem with spikes on a line like this, but it's just habit. I like to keep it 4 or below. Okay, now if you hold Control, letter D, and Shift, then when you click on that line you can just drag it over, and then we'll set that one at the 0 axis. So now we have two magenta borders, and I'll go ahead and lower that stroke point, the weight, down to 1. Okay, so now you have two subtle dotted lines defining your margins at the 0 inch and the 12 inch mark. So let's go back to our layers and we'll go ahead and lock down both of those. Okay, now we're going to put some guides on here so we have some reference points. First, let's go up to View, Guides, and make sure that our guides are not locked. So if there's a check mark here, you want to deselect that. So just come up here to your ruler, click and hold, and just pop down a guide marker there, and be sure it's highlighted. And we'll go back to Transform, and we'll bring this one, let's say, down to the 4 inch mark. Okay, pop another one down. We'll put one at 6. Pop another one. We'll put one at 9. Normally a good print size for a hoodie sweatshirt is 9 inches tall, so I'll bring that marker to 9 just for reference, and then we'll pop one more down and we'll put that one at 14. 14 inches is generally a good standard for max height on a 12 inch wide adult print size. So that'll be our marker there. You can go a little taller, depends on how big your screens are, but just for standard print size, 12 by 14 is a good max to put a standard at. So then let's pull one over a vertical guide from the left. We'll pop one over here, and let's put this one on the x-axis of 2 1/4 inches, and I'll explain this. You'll see why here in a minute. Then pop another one over, and we'll put that one at 9 3/4 inches. Oh, excuse me, it should be the x-axis. 9 3/4 inches. Okay. So now we have a good start here on our guides. So let's go back to our layers and we'll go ahead and lock all these guides. Okay. Now we definitely want one in the center as well. So we'll pull one more over and we'll put that at the center point at 6, and then we'll go and lock that one down as well. Okay. So now we want to go ahead and create a couple of additional layers. You can come down here to create new layer, just hit that twice. On layer 2 we're going to call it colors, and layer 3 we'll call registration. Okay, so be sure your registration layer is selected. And so now let's go ahead and create some registration marks. So we'll pick our line segment tool, hold shift, and just drag down a little line there. Being sure that your stroke is selected, we'll go up here and color it with the registration. Okay, then if you hold Control D and Shift, you can just drag a duplicate over. Okay, so select one of them, hit the letter R and enter. That's for rotate tool, and you should get a little box like this that'll pop up. So we'll just type in a 90-degree turn, hit enter, and that'll give us a perfect 90 degrees there. Select both of them and click on one, go to align, and then you'll click your horizontal align and your vertical align, and that will make them in a perfect X. Okay, so let's make these 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch. That's a good size for registration marks. Now the registration, what that is if you're using film, there's a lot of other machines that will output screens that are practically registered already. You can throw them in the press and they'll line up with just very minor adjustments. But otherwise you'll want registration marks so you can line up each screen to make sure you're printing exactly in line from one color to the next. So now that we have our cross registration mark, hold Control and hit G. That will group those together so they're just one piece. And then select it, and we'll go to the center, 6 inches. And then we'll select the bottom reference point, and we'll put that at 0. Okay, so that puts it perfectly within our box. By the way, you can hold the Alt key and scroll on the mouse to move in and out. By the way, I am using Windows for this. A lot of you may be using Mac, especially if you're using Adobe software. There'll be a difference between the Control and the Command key, so if you're familiar with Illustrator and you're already using it, then you'll know what you need to do there. But so let's make our bottom registration mark. We'll select it, and then we'll pick the top reference point, and we'll put the y-axis. Let's bring it down to 15 inches. Okay, we need to hold Control D and Shift and make us another one, and we'll bring that one back up to the top. Okay, so now we have two. We have one that's above 0 and one that's at 15. So Control D and Shift again, and just click, drag to make a new one. Then you can hit Control and the letter D, and that will duplicate it. So let's move this one over to y-axis or x-axis of 13 inches, and then we'll move this one over to x-axis of -1. So that's putting these registration marks out into our margin. Because remember, in between the magenta lines here is where our art is going to fall. That's our 12-inch marker. So if we bring this one up to the same level as this one, which would be at the 0 marker with the bottom reference, and then if we hold Shift and select this other one, then if you come over here and put your reference point in the center, if you look at the y-axis, it says 7.5 inches. So that tells us that the center between these two registration marks is 7.5 inches. So that's where we need to place each one of these in order to get registration in a square array. So select one and move that to 7.5 inches. Then come over and select the other one, and we'll put it at 7.5 inches as well. So now we have a perfect square of our registration marks. So let's hold Shift, and we'll go around and select each one and hit Control G to group all those together. Okay, so remember, those are on the registration layer. These we will not lock because we want to be able to move these registration marks. Let's say that you have a real short piece of art and the bottom of it, for instance, let's say this is our art, and we'll size it, we'll center it, bring it to 0, and with proportions constrained, we'll give it 12 inches. You want to, when you're sizing the art on this template, you want to be sure you've picked the top center reference points. So we'll have that at center, being 6, 0 inches, and then a 12-inch width. So As you can see, we've got a very short piece of art. This could be a one-liner or whatnot. So like I'm saying, you may need to move your registration, so you can select the bottom one, hit E for your free transform tool, hold shift and drag it up, and that will place your registration where it needs to be, so you're not printing, you know, way down low to catch the other registration. It's a lot easier to line up on the press too. So let's just back up out of this. We'll get rid of our box here. Okay, so now let's create some labels. We're going to put our labels on the registration layer as well. So pick your text tool and just click in there. We'll bring the character font point up to 24. Actually, I think 21 would be better. Okay, and then this one we'll just put as numbers. And remember, this is a template, so each time you use it, you're going to be doing something different. So this is basically just a placeholder. And this would be something like if you had a job number or something like that you wanted to identify this job with, you could just highlight it and type in the number and be done. So Alt D and Shift, and we'll drag that over, make us another one. Control D to get another one. We'll pull this one way over here, and we'll call this one colors, and then we'll just put AD for adult. So if you have adult and a youth print size, you can change this depending on the print size, just an identifier to let everyone know what size the print is. Okay, so now we can select our template layer and go up here to your options button here, and let's identify this as a template layer. So click on template, and it will automatically lock that layer and give you a visibility toggle, so you can click on it and add or remove that template. Okay, so now as I said, I'll explain what the 2 1/4 and 9 3/4 inch markers guides are for. Let's say we want to add another template to this template. So we'll create a new layer, and let's just drag it to the very bottom. Let's say we want to have a template for left or right chest. So we'll put L/R chest for this layer. And a good standard print size for an adult left chest is 4 inches square. So when you're sizing the art, you would bring it to 4 inches, whether it be width or height, whichever dimension hit 4 inches first, that's where you would stop. So remember, when you're sizing the art, you want the proportions to be constrained so everything sizes proportionately. So let's come over here to our rectangle tool, create a box, and we will make the fill to none, and then we'll go ahead and pick the magenta border, and we'll make that dashed line as well. So then let's go back to our transform tool, deselect the proportion constraints, and we'll make that size 4 by 4. Okay, then we want to center this one at 2 1/4 inches and bring it up to 0, and that would be our right chest. Now I know you're thinking, well, that's on the left side. Well, you got to remember, when you're dealing with artwork, everything's looked at kind of in reverse whenever you're printing. So that where the labels are, that's the top of the art. So the screen would go in upside down in the press. So when you put the shirt front side up, it would be on the right side. I know that's a little hard to explain, but if you look at yourself and your shirt, your right chest, if you were to just turn around backwards and lay down on that template, then someone looking at you, your right chest would be on the left side as they looked at you. So if that makes more sense. So let's hold Control D and Shift and just drag us another box, and we'll put that one at the 9 3/4 mark. Okay, so let's select both of those. We'll bring our stroke weight back down to 12, and then we have a new template for left or right chest. So selecting that layer, we'll go here and define it as a template layer. Now we can toggle the visibility to where if we're working with an adult size art, we can just turn that layer off, and it won't be in the way when we're trying to size our art. And then let's say we have a left chest coming up, we can just click on that and we've got our template. Okay, so I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I don't believe there's too much else to this. You can make templates for anything that you might be designing. This is mainly focused on print separation, color separation for screen print. But if you were making business cards or pamphlets or flyers or whatever, and they needed to be certain dimensions, and you wanted a template to where you could just pull it up, put in your information, and everything would be sized perfectly, then this would be how you would do it. Once you're done, you can always come up here to view and go ahead and lock your guides back. But that's pretty much it. The reason for this layer, let's say you have a piece of art. Okay, when you open the template, you'll start on the topmost layer. Let's say this is our art. Okay, so we'll call this art. Okay, we can make it a little fancy, you know, do something tricky with it. Okay, so this is our artwork. So we'd come in here, we'd hit E for our transform, we'd go ahead and bring our shirt color, which is what the black would be, go ahead and bring it in to the edges of the art. Okay, then we could easily size this. One thing that's good to do is to go ahead and create your outlines. You can hold Control Shift and hit the letter O, and that will create outlines. Sometimes you may have issues with print or in translation from the rip that it will shift on you if you don't create outlines on the text. So and let's say we wanted to make an adult, so we'd make that at the 6-inch mark to center it. We'll put it at 0 and make it 12 inches wide. Well, let's constrain our proportions. I did say that we needed to do that, so we'll make it 12, and then we can grab our registration marks here, drag them up, and we'll hit Control and the number 2, go ahead and lock those down so we can't select them. Okay, so we have this sized at a 12-inch width, and it's a little over 5 inches tall. Now let's say that you had some weathering or something that was covering that. So let's say that part of the art, part of the design aspect actually, let's change the shirt color so you can see better, actually had to extend past the top of the art for some reason. Now your registration marks and your labels are now covered up. So in order for those to print, they have to be visible. So that's what that second layer is for. What you'd do is you'd come over here and grab all of the selected art that's on that layer and just drag it down, and then boom, it all falls underneath your registration and your labels. So that's what this free layer is for. It may not always be needed, but in a case like this, you would need to have a place to put that. So that's a good thing to have, is that extra layer there. So that's what that's for. Okay, so now we've got our template created, and remember, if you ever need any more templates, you can just drag you a template box out there with the dotted lines and create your new layer with it. Be sure to define it as a template layer after you've created it, and bring it down to the bottom. But other than that, we need to go ahead and save this template. So first thing we want to do is get rid of all these extra swatches and stuff, because we don't want these popping up every time. We only want to see the colors that are in the art we're working with. So go up here to your options under your swatches panel and select all unused and just click on delete. And then we can click on one, hold shift, click the other, and we can delete all those. And we'll delete that library as well. Okay, so now we have nothing but our registration and our no fill. So then we'll hit Control Shift S, and we'll just we can leave it labeled template, or we can call it screen print template, just whatever you want to call it, and hit save, and save it as CS6. We are working in Adobe CS6, by the way. All that's fine, just hit OK. Now you've saved your template. So let's go over here to our file, and if you want to make sure that you don't overwrite this template accidentally, because it's just something that you want to use over and over again, it's not something that you want to save under the template name. So just right click on it, go to properties, and check read only, and hit OK. So that way, because believe me, I've done this a lot, when you're going fast paced and you're doing hundreds of jobs a day, and you've got some piece of artwork going on that, you know, let's just for an example here, you got a piece of artwork and you go to save it real fast and you hit save, then you've messed up your template. So by putting it at read only, that prevents that from happening. So you'll have to actually you know, label it and save it under the job name, or you know, whatever you wanted to call it. That way you don't mess up your template. So that's pretty much it for this one, folks. I'm gonna probably be doing quite a few tutorials in time over color separation for screen printing. So this was just kind of to get us started. Having the template laid out and ready to go is one of the biggest things that you need to have done before you actually, you know, start doing your color separation. So especially if you're doing very many, a template's something you really want to have. Now if you're just doing you know, one shirt at home or something like that, I mean, you can always bring up your rulers and just drag and size, or use your transform tool or whatever you want. But the template really makes things easy, especially when you're doing obscure print sizes. A template is just invaluable. So I hope this hasn't been too confusing and I didn't ramble on too much, but hopefully you'll find something useful in this, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And again, if you like the strange, bizarre, and unusual subjects of any kind, then check out oddrandomthoughts.com. Thank you. Have a good one.